Welcome to Everything Life Coaching. I'm John Kim.
And I'm Noelle Cordeaux. We are the founders of Lumia.
And we're super passionate about all things coaching, and we want to share what we've learned from over a decade of coaching and training thousands of life coaches.
Let's dive into the science and magic of coaching. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Everything Life Coaching podcast. I have with us today an alumni of our Lumia coach training program, a very special person in the world, someone who found their way to our organization through listening to this very podcast and is now a guest. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing awesome. Thank you for having me.
I'm so delighted to have you. Can you please orient our listeners to who you are in the world and where you are in the world and your area of specialization so that we can dive into our conversation?
So I live in Central Florida. I'm queer, non-binary, mostly neurodivergent, disabled, and I'm really passionate about advocating for and supporting my communities. I specialize in working with neurodivergent people of all ages and anyone wanting to better support the neurodivergent people in their lives.
Awesome. Thank you for the work that you do. I became aware of you and your work when you wrote into our Lumia support that there were some things in our curriculum that we needed eyes on because we didn't have a full comprehensive picture of what the needs of the neurodivergent community were within our own coaching population. So first of all, kudos. It takes a ton of bravery to do that. And you gave me such a beautiful presentation that is currently working its way through our curriculum team for considerations on how we need to do things differently and better. So thank you for that. And
of course.
How did you become interested in this very specific aspect of coaching?
So my journey began with getting my bachelor's in psychology. And I got that because I grew up honestly just thinking there was something innately wrong with me. And I really wanted to understand myself so that I could help myself as well as people like me. So my first job out of college in 2020 was an ABA, which stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. I accepted the job because I told I would be helping autistic kids with what they called harmful and challenging behaviors. At the time, I really didn't know much about autism and I never heard of ABA. But I knew that I'd also struggled with these harmful and challenging behaviors, like they called them, since I was a kid. So I really thought I'd be empathizing with and supporting these kids. Come to find out, that was the furthest thing from what I was doing in ABA. But unfortunately, it took me 2 years to realize that because, first of all, I didn't realize I was autistic at the time. I was heavily masking. So I was used to suppressing who I was and just camouflaging to fit in. And that's essentially what ABA teaches kids to do, which is to seem less autistic, blend in with your peers, your neurotypical peers, and disregard your needs. So I learned about the neurodiversity paradigm in 2022, and that's when I realized, oh, what I'm doing is wrong. And I started listening to autistic adults, and that's really what confirmed to me that I was autistic. I sort of had an idea, but really connecting with my community was how I identified myself. So then I quit my job with no backup plan, very impulsive. I just knew I needed to find a way to better support autistics in an affirming way. And that's when I found your podcast. And just hearing you and John, I just really deeply aligned with your values. And so I signed up for the Essentials course. And here I am now.
Awesome. What a graduation, full circle from an idea, a seed to supporting our listeners, just like you once were. I'm really sorry for your experience. And, I don't know a lot. I don't know anything really about the autistic community. Can you share a little bit about what the harmful and challenging behaviors are that were being presented that you tell us about your experience? Like, I'd love to know more.
Sure. So the harmful and challenging behaviors are what we it's basically just an autistic person in distress. And a lot of times not having the communication, the vocal communication to express that to the adults around them. So they may see kids having meltdowns or shutdowns, throwing things, running out of the room. And what ABA does is tries to extinguish those behaviors with harmful tactics. But what they really needed was someone to listen to them and know, oh, it's the fluorescent lighting. It is giving that kid a migraine. Or it's the smells, or it's the fact that they're non-speaking and they don't have a communication device and they don't know how to communicate to you. So those were the types of things that we, worked on. And I learned that there was a better way to do those types of things.
Yeah, that's really important information. So I just want to mirror back what I'm hearing from you for understanding is that for some folks, what is described as harmful and challenging is actually just straightforward communication about needs.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. That's a great framework to work from. And I imagine that there may be a lot of parents out there who are listening where some light bulbs, might be going on at this point. Or even some adults who might be relating and saying, wow, this is making, a ton of sense for me. So
yeah.
When I sat for your presentation on neurodivergence and coaching, you gave us some really amazing terminology to consider. Would you be able to walk us through some terms today so that, folks listening can understand, mirror, and reflect in appropriate ways?
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate you asking because language is such a key component of being neurodiversity affirmative. And I didn't just know this language. I had to learn it so I can empathize with it is hard to learn. So one of the first terms is neuronormativity. And that's a set of standards, expectations, and norms that center certain ways of functioning as the superior or right way. So then there's the neurodiversity paradigm, which is a lens that asserts that all neurotypes are natural and essential to human diversity. There's not a normal or healthy neurotype, and that the social power inequalities impact neurodiversity similarly to other forms of human diversity, such as race, gender, and sexuality. So neurodiversity is the natural diversity or variety of human brains or neurotypes. And this implies that there's not one right way to think or do things or exist, and that brains function differently from person to person, and that's perfectly normal and okay. Neurotype is it's a category for identifying diversity in brain wiring and functionality. So we all have a neurotype, just like we all have a sexuality, a gender, race, etc. So then there's neurodivergent, which is abbreviated with ND a lot of the time. And it's an umbrella term for people whose neurotype diverges from what's socially considered quote unquote normal. So I'm neurodivergent because I'm autistic, ADHD, plus some others. I also refer to myself as multiply neurodivergent because I'm neurodivergent in more than one way. And then there's the opposite of neurodivergent, which is neurotypical. And that's a person whose neurotype aligns with what's socially considered normal or standard. And that goes into neuronormativity. That's the neurotypical view as the superior and right way, according to neuronormativity. Words are hard. And then last term is neurodiverse. And when someone says neurodiverse, they're referring to a group of people with different neurotypes. So neurodiverse can't be used to refer to one person. So for example, a neurodiverse could include an autistic person, a person with Down syndrome, and a neurotypical person. And I can share resources for these definitions so that listeners can have a copy of them to reference to and learn more about.
That would be great. We'll pop it in the show notes so that folks can check it out. So, what's coming up for me as I'm listening to you is that if we were to walk into any room, and I'm just thinking of the Lumia retreat that we just had, that's a neurodiverse group of humans.
Exactly.
Because no matter what kind of grouping you put in a room, everybody's going to have a different aspect of representation. And what's also coming up for me is how much this is just a massive part of intersectionality that is perhaps overlooked because it's not visible to us.
Exactly.
Okay. So intersectionality in coaching is one of the key components of beginning to get in front of harnessing, coaching presence, and harnessing, unconscious bias. And so what I'm hearing from you is that from an NT neurotypical perspective, there's been held up as like this one like right way.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're at this inflection point in society where the idea of a right way is being questioned. Everything from command and control leadership to white supremacy to the patriarchy to capitalism. And now here we are, like, let's blow this to smithereens. Like, we are a neurodiverse, population. So I heard you talk about masking. Can you give us a sense of, growing up in your body and your brain, what was the standard? Like, so if we're looking at something and we want to name it, like we name white supremacy, we know what it is. Like, if we're looking at the standard for neurotypical, being on the other side of intersectional identity, what does that standard look like? And how does it not make sense? And what do we need to know about it in order to start undoing it?
So growing up, I was socialized as a girl, raised AFAB. So a lot of that goes into the people-pleasing tendencies that we have. Give more than you take. If you even take it all, you probably shouldn't. Take up less space, and to be compliant and polite. And if you're uncomfortable, don't show it. So growing up, I was very high masking ever since I was a kid. I looked at my peers, I figured out what was quote unquote normal and acceptable, and I emulated that. And I did it really well. Hence why I didn't realize I was autistic until I was 23. So to dismantle that, it really, of course, it is linked in colonialism and white supremacy and patriarchy and all the things that you said. So it's, first of all, identifying those things exist and looking at how much you're perpetuating them and as an individual. And then once you've done that, for me, it's beginning to unmask, which is connecting back, honestly, with my childlike self, my most authentic self, and knowing what causes me discomfort, what causes me joy, the things that we don't even think about because they're supposed to be just innate. Really thinking about all the little things that make you who you are, and challenging, is that who I am told to be, or is this who I authentically am?
And I know, from my own intersectional experience, there are a couple of things that you might be able to relate to. One of them is shame, when you don't have the shoulds. I should be a certain way. I have a lot of dyslexic traits, and for me, math was always very tricky because I flip things around. Yes. And there was always an idea that I held that I, Noelle, could never engage in the world of business because I can't do math. There's something wrong with me. And another is that feeling of when I look into those joy points and I look into my innate self and who I am and my strengths and my talents, and this comes down to, I think, a lot of queer identity, is realizing that I have to carve a space for myself to exist because it doesn't readily exist. And so those are kind of two things that I've dealt with, is shame and then needing to create space for myself. What's that like? What's that been like for you? And does that play into the world of neurodiversity?
the shoulds really hit home because that's rooted in internalized ableism. So adopting ableism as how you treat yourself. So I should be able to go in this coffee shop with the loud music and the lights and the smells and be able to work, because look at everyone around me. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? This happened yesterday and I had to leave in tears. And I had to have a lot of compassion with myself and stop shooting myself. Just little things like that. And like you said, carving a space. I didn't get to grow up as a queer person, and I didn't get to grow up non-binary, and I didn't get to grow up queer. So I had to have a lot of self-compassion and allow myself the space and the time and the patience to figure myself out, because we're not raised like most of us aren't raised like that.
Yeah. Thank you. So, I mean, what's striking me is that, your voice and your bravery is exemplary of leadership, right? And I'm not going to cry because I'm so proud of our community and all of the work of our coaches. But, this is what it's all about. It's noticing, it's seeing, it's saying, this is what I have to offer. This is what I have to say. And then stepping forward to literally lend your voice out of love for others. So thank you. I just want to honor you in this.
Thank you.
And, everybody who listens to our podcast comes to it from a place of wanting to do better and wanting to understand and wanting to be a good coach. So, if we have coaches out there who are neurodiverse, who are like, I want in the game, what do we need to know? I know, from an intersectionality perspective, I hear from queer folks and I hear from BIPOC folks. I want coaches who look like me. I want coaches who can identify with my experience. How does that work in the ND world?
Yeah, I think the feeling is similar. Like I work with a neurodivergent coach because it gives that instant representation and like, you understand me, even though they have different needs. And it, neurodivergent is a big umbrella term. Like, so we're very different, neurodivergent to neurodivergent person and neurodivergent person. We're very different, but we have the innate understanding of each other, of what it's like to exist differently in the world and to be very misunderstood. So by having a neurodivergent coach, you know that your needs aren't going to be dismissed and that you're going to be listened to and advocated for. And representation is so important because majority of us are unemployed. So we don't see majority of us within the career space. So it's really important to see each other and encourage each other.
One of the points that you brought up at Lumia is the need for training neurodiverse coaches to authentically coach neurodiverse clients in an affirming way, with a caveat of not training neurotypical coaches on how to coach neurodivergent clients, right? So let's say that we're an NT coach and our client comes to us and says, I'm realizing that I'm autistic for the first time. So as a coach, what do we have? We have our choices are, coach the person, not the problem, so that we stay with the client and affirm them, or we can refer out to an ND coach. In that space, if we're offering our neurotypical coaches a path forward, what do you think? What would you do? It's like a choose your own adventure story.
Yeah, I think the reason I didn't advocate for training neurotypical coaches how to coach neurodivergent clients is because if they want to specialize in this niche, they can, and they can take that extra training. It's okay if they don't want to, and it's okay to refer out. But if you do go this route and you want to continue working with that client, I would encourage you to learn from autistic people, not about autistic people, because there's a big difference. So that would be step one. I would offer basically universal design. So being accessible to everybody, regardless of their intersectionality, their age, disability, or other factors. So offering accommodations, I would ask what you need from me at that moment.
Something that you shared earlier that really landed for me was the statistics regarding the experience of ND people. You said that most ND people are unemployed.
Mm-hmm.
That struck me. So as we're thinking about coaching, as we're thinking about the workforce, as we're thinking about why people may be coming to the space of coaching, can you share a little bit of the backstory that's not really visible of the lived experience of ND folks? What are they up against?
Like 30 to 40% of neurodivergent people are unemployed. And I meant to say majority of autistic people are unemployed. So that's 86% of autistic people are unemployed. Only 14% of us hold a job. So with that statistic, that just emphasizes the extra support that we need with employment, whether that's finding careers aligned with our strengths, identifying and requesting accommodations, or increasing self-advocacy in the workplace. Another statistic is that 70% of neurodivergent employees experience co-occurring mental health conditions. Mm-hmm. And 72% of autistic adults are at suicide risk. Yeah. And as coaches, we are taught to refer to a therapist, which we should do. And if we're neurodiversity affirming, we can continue to support our clients because for many of us, these conditions are lifelong. So this is more so of a call to action to support us in unmasking, identifying our support needs, and finding authentic ways to self-regulate to help with these co-occurring conditions that we have.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and it's like when I think about mental health, emotional health, and well-being, and I've been with some of my clients for years and years and years. And as we kind of traverse the journeys of life, there are times when things are topsy-turvy. There are times when things are smooth. There are times when things are acute and underlying mental health conditions pop up. Mm-hmm. There are times when my clients do go to therapy. There are times when my clients do get on meds, and yet we continue coaching because the point of coaching is to move forward with your life.
Exactly.
In spite of everything that you're up against, in spite of, everything that you're going on. So some of the things that that I'm hearing loud and clear is that listen to neurodiverse folks about their experience to gain like a true understanding, because it sounds like a lot of what is presented in the literature, academia, and possibly even the medical model is incorrect and not affirming.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. A lot of it is about us, but not from us and for us. So there's a lot of confusion that can happen because there's the double empathy problem by Dr. Damian Milton, which states that non-autistic people struggle to understand autistic people just as much as we struggle to understand them. So that there's not a problem with either one of our theory of mind. It's just that non-autistics understand non-autistics better, and autistics understand autistics better. So that's the emphasis for learning from autistic people if you really want to know how to help us better, as well as neurodivergent people. That can be applied to other neurodivergents as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like that's true for any aspect of intersectionality.
Exactly.
And that's just a great rule of thumb for coaches is ask the person in front of you what their experience is. Ask the person in front of you what your needs are. Ask the person in front of you, how you would like to get support and proceed. It feels very straightforward from that perspective of open-heartedness.
It does. It does. It's one of those things that sounds so, of course, when you hear it, but sometimes if we're taught for so long that so many things are deficit or pathologized, like we start to believe that until we hear someone else say something like Dr. Damian Milton did.
Yeah, awesome. And, huge thanks to everybody who comes forward to work on these problems. It kind of in the scope of history, I'm curious about placing this, because I've been around the block a couple times, and this conversation is new for me to really be getting into the intersectional needs of the ND community. So, who's doing this work now? Where are the well springs? And, you mentioned one great theorist. What do we need to know? Who do we need to know about? What's popping?
Yeah. One of my favorites is Dr. Megan Anna Neff. They're autistic ADHD psychologist and researcher. They have amazing content on Instagram and their website. I can also provide a link for them. Dr. Nick Walker. She is amazing. I already have her as my link for some of the terminologies for neurodiversity. Devin Price, the lived experience educator, which is Sunny Jane Weiss. I also reference them for some of the terminology. So these people are here. It's just, again, with marginalization, we aren't as mainstream as other people are. So those are just some of the people that have really great work and have really helped me in my self-education of neurodiversity.
So we got into, some different ways to support ND folks. Listen to the lived experience of your clients, bang on. Are there things not to do? And when we get into the question of what not to do, I don't want it to feel punitive, but I think it's sometimes even in coach training, it's helpful to have those behavioral markers. So an example in coaching of what not to do is don't talk over your client, don't be directive. That's what's not. So in working with ND folks, are there a greatest hits list of what not to do?
Yeah, I think the first one is to not use functioning labels or ableist or pathologizing language. And I don't think people do that intentionally. Again, I just think it's systematically how we were taught. I'll share from my own experience as a client. So I told a coach once that I was autistic, and they responded with, "Oh, I didn't see that in you. You must be really high functioning then." And I know the coach didn't have bad intentions, but in that moment, I checked out. I felt extremely invalidated and dismissed at that moment. So I'm like, yeah, you're just seeing my mask. That's all you're saying. Don't say things like that, please. Another thing, don't call someone's neurodivergence a superpower. I hear this a lot, and I know it's well-meaning, but again, with the previous example, it can be really dismissive to a lot of us. Because while our neurodivergence can give us incredible strengths, it also comes with a lot of challenges, and a lot of neurodivergent people are disabled. Another thing that we're taught to do in coach training is to reflect emotions, to label your client's emotions or challenge the mismatch between their words and their facial expressions. So this can have a negative effect on some neurodivergent clients because many of us have different facial expressions than neurotypical people. So for example, many autistics have a flat and monotone affect, like myself, which could be assumed as angry, upset, bored, annoyed. But these emotions are usually the opposite of how we're feeling. So a coach might reflect that I look angry when I'm actually really focused and I'm connecting my thoughts. So then I might try to look more quote unquote pleasant, which means that I would start masking. And we've been through the effects of masking and how detrimental that is. So those are just a few things to avoid when you're working with neurodivergent clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm just playing this through in the context of a coaching conversation because this is really good stuff. So, if I only work by phone, so I wouldn't necessarily see a facial expression. But if you're telling me that your affect is typically flat, I wouldn't be able to get a sense of your emotion. So I might say something as a coach, and I need you to just correct me here because I don't know. So I might say something as a coach like, I hear the seriousness of what you're telling me, but I can't tell how you're feeling from your voice. Can you share with me what emotions are going on for you right now?
Again, I think all of it except for labeling the seriousness, because I might not be so serious. I might just be like purposeful, or I might be content, and my voice might sound flat. Typically, the only time my voice changes a lot is when I'm talking about something I'm super passionate about. But yeah, asking the client how they're feeling. And something to note, some neurodivergents, especially for autistics and some ADHDers, have issues identifying their emotions. It's called alexithymia. So they don't know how they're feeling in the moment. So sometimes that can be challenging for some neurodivergent. So when they say they don't know, they likely don't know. So just something to be mindful of.
Absolutely. So this sounds like something that might be really helpful to establish at intake with a client. Of outside of coaching session, hey, is there anything that I need to know about you in terms of where you might fall on a spectrum from ND to NT, in terms of the way that you relate to feelings or emotions?
Exactly. Yeah, coming at it with curiosity. Yeah, I love it.
Cool. Awesome. All right, everyone, we have something new to add to our coaching intake forms as to insert a question in there, because, if we don't know, we can't do better. And if this is an area where folks feel a lot of shame in asking and might not even want to just come out and share with a coach that they don't know that well, we can always invite a little bit of space to say, hey, I would like to accept you as a whole person. Is there anything at all that I need to know, so that when we're in conversation with each other, acknowledging that coaching is a verbal discipline, there are different rules for different people.
Yeah, definitely. Just asking them how do you experience your emotions? How do you identify with your emotions? Can be super helpful. And I know that you noted that coaching is a vocal discipline, and it mainly is. That's something that I offer just to increasing accessibility for my clients is coaching through nonverbal means like email or whiteboard, or I want to look into like a chat room or AAC, which is a communication device for non-speaking autistics. So just to increase accessibility, there are other ways to do coaching besides just speaking, because that isn't accessible to everybody.
Absolutely. I do a lot of coaching over text.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. It's a bridge for my clients in between sessions, and not everybody needs a full hour session to process. Sometimes they just need to vent, clear, share, and then have that safe container to be held.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. We all get there one way or another. All right. So what is, above all else, one thing that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Don't assume that you're working with neurotypical clients. They may not tell you, or they may not know. So best case is to use neurodiversity affirming practice with all of your clients, not just clients who identify as neurodivergent.
I love that. And thank you in advance for the tools that you're going to provide for folks to dive in deeper and get a handle on this. And I know that there are folks who are going to want to reach out to you for information, for support, to pay you for your services. So where can folks find you?
You can find me at my website at thrivingnd.com. And you can book a free discovery call. I also offer coaching exchanges, like bartering for other coaches. So you have those opportunities as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being a part of our Lumia family. It has been wonderful to spend time with you. And again, I am just so proud to have, listener to coach to guest. Thank you so much, Em.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Everything Life Coaching. If you're feeling the draw to become a coach, head to lumiacoaching.com/everything. Explore a new career that brings fulfillment, gives you a true sense of purpose, and a bold community to do it with.
Lumia is ready to equip you with the tools, training, and community you will need to reach your goals. If you're ready to build a unique coaching business on your own terms while making an impact on the world at large, Lumia is the next bold step in your coaching journey. That's lumiacoaching.com/everything.
And hey, if you're waiting for a sign, this is it.